My name is Mark, and I've been married to Lisa for the past 10 years. We live in a cozy little suburb just outside the city, where the houses are neatly lined up like soldiers in a parade. The picket fences are white, the lawns are perfectly manicured, and it seems like everyone in our neighborhood is living the American dream. I thought we were one of those happy couples. We had everything: a lovely home, decent jobs, and enough laughter to fill a lifetime. But as it turns out, appearances can be deceiving. Lisa was beautiful, smart, and had a charming personality that could light up a room. I still remember the day we met at a mutual friend's party. She had on a simple blue dress that flowed effortlessly with every move she made. There was an instant connection, and I knew from the very first moment that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. We dated for a couple of years, and after a whirlwind romance, I proposed. Our wedding was like something out of a fairy tale: family, friends, and love all wrapped into one perfect day. As the years went by, life became predictable. I worked as a project manager in a tech company while Lisa was a freelance graphic designer. It was a comfortable life, but somewhere along the way that spark began to fade. We fell into a routine. I'd go to work and she'd stay home or work on her projects. Our conversations diminished, and we both started taking each other for granted. I never thought that this monotony would lead to something catastrophic. It all started last summer. I had been working late nights trying to complete a big project at work. One night I came home late, exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. Lisa was waiting for me, but she seemed distant. There was something off about her demeanor, but I brushed it aside, attributing it to the stress of life. I tried to ask her about her day, but she merely shrugged, giving me short answers. That night I fell asleep without thinking twice about it. As the weeks passed, I noticed more and more changes in Lisa. She started spending more time on her phone, giggling at texts that made me uneasy. When I asked her who she was talking to, she would smile and say it was just work. The late-night work calls became more frequent, and I often found her in the other room, whispering softly as if sharing a secret. I should have paid closer attention to the warning signs, but I was too caught up in my own world to notice. Then, one fateful day, my suspicions were confirmed. I had taken a rare day off from work, hoping to spend some quality time with Lisa. I found her in the shower, and her phone was buzzing on the countertop. Curiosity and a gut feeling compelled me to take a look. I picked it up and saw a message from someone named Jake. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you." My heart sank. I had become a detective in my own marriage, and what I found was the beginning of a nightmare I never imagined. I put the phone back down as if it had burned my fingers. The world around me started to blur, and I was engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, confusion. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My mind raced as I tried to process the reality of what was happening. How could Lisa do this to me? Did she not cherish our years together, the love we built, the trust? I had to confront her. I needed answers. But before I could gather my thoughts, Lisa stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, and noticed my pale face. "Mark, what's wrong?" she asked with a concerned expression. I wanted to shout, to scream her name and demand the truth, but instead I simply shook my head and walked out. I couldn't face her just yet. I needed to think, I needed to plan. I spent that day in a daze, moving through the motions as if everything was normal. I made breakfast, ate in silence, and pretended to read the newspaper while the words formed a jumbled mess in my mind. All I could think about was that text. "Can't wait to see you tonight." Who was Jake? Was he just a friend, or was he something more? The questions tumbled through my mind like a violent storm, each one sharper than the last. When Lisa left for an afternoon meeting, I felt the weight of the house pressing down on me. I knew I had to find out more. I couldn't just confront her with the little I had. I needed evidence. The thought of being made a fool made my blood boil. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started with her phone. It was a risk, but the temptation was too great. I waited for when Lisa was out of the house, and I carefully retrieved her phone from the drawer in the kitchen. My heart raced as I unlocked it with the code I had memorized. The first message I opened was from Jake, and it confirmed my worst fears. They had been exchanging messages for weeks, flirting, sharing secrets, and planning their rendezvous. I felt sick. I had been living with a stranger. As I scrolled through the messages, I stumbled upon images meant for someone else, intimate selfies that turned my stomach. Lisa had been unfaithful to me. With every new message I read, my heart shattered a little more. They talked about meeting up, going to dinners, and even shared a code name for their secret meetings. It was as if my life had turned into a twisted drama I never wanted to be part of. I couldn't confront her yet, I had to think it through. I sat in the living room, the glow of her phone screen illuminating my anger. It was like the world outside had faded into the background. I was trapped in a nightmare, and the only way out seemed to lead through the flames of revenge. I contemplated my next move. Should I confront her now or wait until I had more information? The latter felt more strategic. I decided to gather evidence over the next few days. I set up a hidden camera in our bedroom, thinking it would capture any future indiscretions. I also signed up for a phone tracking app that would allow me to see Lisa's movements in real time. The thought of spying on her made me uneasy, but I felt justified. I needed to know the truth, and I was willing to do whatever it took to unearth it. As the days passed, I watched her every move from a distance. I noted the times she left for meetings and the secretive calls that lasted longer than they should have. Each time she left the house, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I wondered who she was meeting and what they were doing. The anticipation of catching her in the act filled me with a strange sense of power. The fire of betrayal ignited a darker part of me. One evening, I decided to follow her. I knew she had a meeting, and I needed to see for myself. I parked a few blocks away from our house, waiting for her to leave. My heart raced as I watched her pull out of the driveway, her car gliding smoothly onto the street. I followed her, keeping my distance as she drove into the night. My stomach churned with anxiety, but I felt a strange thrill at the idea of uncovering the truth. She drove to a downtown bar, a place we had been to several times before. I parked across the street and waited, watching as she entered the establishment. After a few minutes, the door swung open, and out stepped Jake. They greeted each other with a hug that sent waves of nausea through me. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. They sat at a table near the window, laughing and sharing drinks. I felt like a voyeur, watching my life unravel without any control. I pulled out my phone and began recording from the safety of my car, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and despair. As the night wore on, they leaned closer, their body language betraying the intimacy they shared. It was clear this was more than just friendship. I couldn't take it anymore. I had seen enough. I drove home in a haze, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. I thought about how I would confront her, how I would make her feel the pain I was feeling. The idea of revenge began to take root in my mind, sprouting dark plans that I had never thought I was capable of. I returned home, my heart heavy with the burden of betrayal, but my mind was clear about what I needed to do next. I would not be a passive victim in this story. I would take control of my fate, and Lisa would pay for what she had done to me. In the following days, I spent countless hours plotting my revenge. Anger surged through my veins, fueling my thoughts as I considered the different paths I could take. I felt like a chess player, positioning my pieces on a board, strategizing my moves with calculated precision. The thrill of revenge was intoxicating, and I found myself consumed by the idea of making Lisa feel the pain she had inflicted on me. I started by documenting everything. I saved the texts between her and Jake, the photos I had found, and filed away clips from the hidden camera. I knew that I needed to gather enough evidence to present to her in a way that would leave no room for denial. This wouldn't just be a confrontation, it would be a reckoning. I wanted her to see the depth of her betrayal, to feel the weight of her choices crashing down on her. I also began to craft a plan to expose her infidelity in a way that would be both humiliating and unforgettable. My mind raced with ideas. I could tell her friends and family, turn her social circle against her, but that felt too easy. I wanted her to experience the full gravity of her actions, to understand the consequences in a way that would be indelible. It had to be something that would haunt her, something that would make her think twice before betraying anyone again. Then it hit me. I would stage a fake surprise party for her birthday. I knew that Lisa loved parties and she often longed for the days when we could celebrate with friends. I could use this to my advantage. I would invite her closest friends, telling them it was going to be a big celebration. She would be thrilled, but I would also arrange for Jake to attend. I could get him to show up, unwittingly playing his part in a performance that would expose the truth. I began to set the wheels in motion. I reached out to some of her friends, casually mentioning that I was planning something special for Lisa's birthday. Their excitement was palpable. They offered to help with the arrangements. I coordinated with them to keep everything a secret from Lisa, ensuring that she had no idea what was coming. With everything in place, I started to feel a sense of control I hadn't experienced in weeks. The anger that had brewed inside me was now transformed into a cold, calculated resolve. I felt powerful, ready to take back what was rightfully mine. Lisa had betrayed me, and now it was time for her to confront the reality of her actions. The days leading up to the party flew by, and as her birthday approached, I shifted my focus on the details. I arranged for catering, decorations, and even a cake that would say "Happy Birthday, Lisa" in bright icing. The pieces were falling into place perfectly. On the night before the party, I made sure to act nonchalant. Lisa was blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. I could sense the excitement in her as she talked about possible birthday plans, oblivious to the fact that I was orchestrating a grand reveal that would turn her world upside down. The morning of her birthday arrived, and I put my plan into action. I decorated the living room while she was still asleep, transforming our home into a festive space. Balloons floated above us, streamers hung from the ceiling, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air. It all felt surreal, as though I were preparing for a celebration of life while simultaneously plotting the end of a chapter. As the hour approached, I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. I had invited Jake to arrive just a bit later, ensuring that he would make a grand entrance. Lisa would be surrounded by friends, celebrating as if nothing was amiss until the moment when she would see him walk through the door. I imagined the look on her face, shock, confusion, and ultimately the realization that her double life was about to unravel. Everything was set. I could feel the tension in my chest as I waited for her to wake up and step into the carefully crafted web I had spun. I was ready for the moment that would change everything. I just needed to be patient. As Lisa finally emerged from the bedroom, a smile on her face, I felt a rush of adrenaline. "Happy birthday, babe," I exclaimed as she took in the sight of our transformed living room. Her eyes lit up with delight, and I basked in the glow of her happiness. For a moment I almost felt guilty. Almost. But that feeling faded as I remembered the betrayal that lay beneath the surface. I was ready to serve her the reality check she so desperately needed. The guests began to arrive and laughter filled our home. I joined in, feigning joy while my heart raced with anticipation of the final act. Lisa chatted and danced, caught up in the celebrations, oblivious to the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. Finally, it was time. I signaled to Jake to make his entrance, my heart pounding with exhilaration. I watched as he walked through the door, and Lisa turned to face him. The shock on her face was everything I had hoped for. As Jake stepped into the living room, the laughter and cheer seemed to fade into an eerie silence. Lisa's face transformed from joy to disbelief, her mouth slightly agape as she processed the reality of what was happening. The very air in the room felt charged, as if the universe itself held its breath in anticipation of the chaos that was about to unfold. "Surprise!" I shouted, breaking the tension with a forced grin. The guests looked from me to Lisa, their expressions shifting from excitement to confusion, and then finally to concern as the truth began to dawn on them. Lisa stood frozen, her eyes darting between Jake and me, trying to piece together what this meant. "Mark, what's going on?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, panic creeping into her tone. "Oh, come on, Lisa. You know exactly what's going on," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. "I thought it was time you faced the music." The guests whispered among themselves, unsure of how to react to the unfolding drama. I could see the shock on their faces, and a morbid sense of satisfaction washed over me. This was what I had envisioned, a public exposure of her infidelity that would leave a lasting mark on her conscience. Jake, standing awkwardly just inside the door, glanced between us, confusion etched on his face. "What's happening? I thought this was a party." I stepped forward, confronting him as well. "Oh, it is a party for Lisa's birthday. But I thought it was also the perfect time to reveal your little secret, don't you think?" Lisa took a step back, her hand instinctively reaching for her hair as she tried to regain some semblance of control. "Mark, please, let's talk about this," she pleaded, her eyes wide with desperation. But I couldn't hold back any longer. "Talk. You think there's anything left to talk about? You've been having an affair with Jake for who knows how long, and I'm just supposed to stand here and pretend I don't know." The room was dead silent now. Conversation stopped, and all eyes were on the three of us. Lisa's friends looked torn between wanting to defend her and the realization that she had betrayed me in the most heinous way. "Mark, it's not what you think," Lisa cried out, her voice cracking as she searched for an explanation. "Jake is just a friend, I swear." "A friend? You mean the friend you texted about missing and meeting up with? The friend whose arms you've been leaning on while I've been working late?" I felt the rage bubbling up inside me, but I kept it in check, focusing instead on the way her expression shifted from desperation to a mix of fear and anger. "Please, just let me explain," she shouted, her composure wavering as the reality of the situation began to sink in. "I think we all deserve an explanation, don't you?" I turned to the guests, who were now just spectators in this unfolding drama. "Let's hear what Lisa has to say." Jake finally spoke up, sensing the tension but unsure of how to diffuse it. "I didn't know this was happening, I swear I—" "Shut up, Jake," I snapped, cutting him off. "You're just as complicit in this as she is. You think you can waltz in here and act innocent. You've helped tear apart my marriage, and now you get to face the consequences too." I could see the fear in Lisa's eyes as she began to realize the magnitude of what was happening. "Mark, please, I never wanted this to happen. I made a mistake," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Made a mistake." I laughed bitterly. "This isn't just a mistake, Lisa. You've been living a double life, and now everyone knows. How does it feel to be exposed like this?" The guests shifted uncomfortably, and I noticed a few of them exchanging glances, their expressions ranging from shock to sympathy. I knew they were unsure of how to react, but I didn't care. This was about Lisa and the betrayal that had shattered my world. "What do you want me to say?" Lisa asked, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You mean you didn't mean for me to find out?" I shot back, my voice thick with emotion. "You've been lying to my face while I worked hard to provide for us. You've betrayed the trust we built over a decade, and you think a simple apology will fix it." The weight of the moment crashed down upon her, and for the first time she looked truly defeated. I could see the realization dawning on her that this wasn't just a conversation, it was the end of our life together as she knew it. "Mark, I love you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you, I just—" "Love," I interrupted, shaking my head. "Love doesn't betray. You've ruined that, and now you have to face the consequences." I turned back to the guests, raising my voice to address everyone present. "I think it's clear now why we're here tonight. This is not just a birthday party. It's a lesson in trust, betrayal, and the very real consequences of infidelity." The room held its breath, and I could see the shock and sadness etched on the faces of Lisa's friends. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. This was what I had wanted, but at the same time I could see the weight of my actions and the pain they were causing radiating from Lisa. She was broken, and it was hard to watch. "Jake, you can leave," I said, dismissing him with a wave of my hand. "I think you've done enough damage for one night." He looked at Lisa, uncertain, but I could see the realization hit him too. This was not just a mistake, it was a reckoning. Without a word, he turned and walked out the door, leaving Lisa standing there, completely exposed. "Mark," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling, "please, let's talk. Can we go somewhere private?" I shook my head. "No, Lisa, this is your moment. We're not going anywhere until you explain yourself to everyone." There was no turning back now, and I knew that the fallout from this night would change everything. The silence in the room was deafening. Lisa stood there, tears streaming down her face as she faced the reality of what she had done. Her friends, once gathered to celebrate her, now looked at her with a mixture of shock, sympathy, and disappointment. I sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable tension that weighed heavily on everyone present. "Go on, Lisa," I urged, my voice firm. "Tell them what you've been hiding. Tell them about Jake and about the life you've been living behind my back." She opened her mouth to speak, but the words faltered. Sobs racked her body, and I could see the struggle within her. This was what I wanted, but seeing her so broken brought forth a conflict I hadn't anticipated. I felt powerful in my revenge, yet I was forced to witness the unraveling of the woman I had loved for so long. One of her friends, Amanda, stepped forward, her expression softening. "Lisa, you need to tell us the truth. We're here for you, but you have to be honest." Taking a shaky breath, Lisa finally managed to speak. "I've been seeing Jake for the past 6 months. It started as just a friendship, but it turned into something more. I don't even know how it happened." The confessions came out in fits and starts, her voice trembling as she recounted the lies she had woven. I watched as her friends reacted, some shaking their heads in disbelief while others looked away, unable to face the reality of her betrayal. It was a raw and painful moment, and I felt an odd mix of satisfaction and sorrow. What I hadn't anticipated, however, was the way the other women in the room rallied around her. Despite the deep betrayal, they offered her comfort, a shoulder to cry on. They wanted to understand, to help her navigate this mess she had created, but I couldn't let that happen. I felt a surge of anger as I realized they were trying to shield her from the consequences of her actions. "Don't excuse her," I interjected, my voice rising again. "She needs to face what she's done. This isn't just about her, it's about the trust she shattered. You all deserve to know the truth." The room fell silent again, and I could see Lisa's heart breaking all over again. I hated what she had done to me, but seeing her so vulnerable and exposed stirred feelings I didn't want to acknowledge. I forced myself to focus on the anger instead, reminding myself of the pain she had caused. "Lisa," I continued, my voice steadier, "this is your moment of reckoning. You need to understand that actions have consequences, and this isn't just an apology you can brush off. You've hurt me, and you've hurt everyone who cared about you. If you think that you can walk away from this without facing the truth, you're wrong." "I know," she replied, her voice breaking. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to get this far. Maybe you should have thought about that before you texted Jake about missing him. You think that's just friendship." I shot back, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Lisa's friends exchanged glances, and I could see the realization settling in. They were beginning to grapple with the fact that the woman they had adored was not who they thought she was. The facade she had built was crumbling, and I felt a surge of triumph, but deep down I also felt hollow. This wasn't the victory I had envisioned. It was a painful exposure of the cracks in our relationship. I had won the battle against Lisa, but the war had taken its toll. As the party continued to unravel around us, I could see the range of emotions on Lisa's face: guilt, regret, and a dawning realization of what she had lost. I had planned this grand exposure, but now I was left standing among our friends, witnessing the fallout of a love that had turned to ashes. Eventually, the guests began to filter out, their excitement replaced by discomfort. Amanda stayed behind, her nurturing instincts shining through as she approached Lisa, wrapping her arms around her in a comforting embrace. "Let's get you some water," Amanda said softly, leading Lisa away from the chaos. As they walked away, I felt a pang of loneliness wash over me. This was my life, my marriage, and now it felt like I was watching from the sidelines as everyone else picked up the pieces. When the last of the guests had left, I found myself alone in the living room. The decorations were still up, the remnants of a birthday party that had turned into a disaster. I sank into the couch, my hands running through my hair in frustration. What had I done? Had I truly sought revenge, or had I simply acted out of hurt? Lisa returned a few moments later, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked fragile, as though the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. "Mark," she began, her voice shaky, "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know how to make this right." "Right," I echoed, bitterness lacing my words. "Do you really think there's any way to make this right? You've shattered everything we built together. Trust is not something you can just fix with words. I know, she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll do anything to earn back your trust. I don't want to lose you. Then you shouldn't have put me in this position in the first place, I said, my voice cold. This isn't something that can be easily forgiven. You were the one who chose to betray me, and now you have to face the consequences. Lisa wilted under my words, and a part of me felt guilty for the way I was treating her, but I couldn't allow myself to back down now. I had fought so hard for my dignity, and I needed to keep that resolve. I need time, I said finally, my voice softening just a touch. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I can't pretend this didn't happen. I need to process everything. Lisa nodded, her shoulders trembling as she wiped her tears. I understand, she whispered. I'll give you all the time you need, but please don't give up on us. I watched her leave the room, my heart heavy with uncertainty. The confrontation had brought clarity, but it had also opened up wounds I hadn't fully acknowledged. Revenge had felt empowering in the moment, but now it felt like a hollow victory. As I sat in silence, surrounded by the remnants of what had once been a joyful occasion, I realized that there was no going back. The aftermath of this night would linger in the air like an unshakable shadow, a haunting reminder of the fragility of trust and love. The days that followed felt like an eternity. I moved through life in a haze, each moment heavy with the weight of betrayal. Lisa and I maintained a fragile distance, living in the same house but feeling like strangers. The warmth that once filled our home had been replaced by an unsettling chill. I found myself constantly replaying the events of that night, dissecting every word, every action, and wondering if I could ever look at her the same way again. I threw myself into work as a distraction, hopping to drown out the chaos in my mind. My colleagues noticed my distraction, but I brushed off their concerns. I wasn't ready to share my pain with anyone. I needed time to process everything, to sift through the anger and heartbreak that had taken root in my chest. Lisa, on the other hand, appeared to be desperately trying to make amends. She went out of her way to be helpful around the house, cooking meals, and even attempting to engage in conversations. But the thought of her infidelity lingered like a cloud, casting a shadow over everything she did. I appreciated her efforts, but they felt hollow. It was as if she was trying to fill a wound that could never fully heal. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I heard her soft footsteps approaching. I glanced up to see her standing in the doorway, her expression serious. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart racing. It was time for another conversation, one that needed to happen if we were going to find a way forward. She sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "I know things are still tense between us," she began, her voice shaking. "But I want to be honest with you about everything. I've been reflecting a lot since that night, and I realize how deeply I've hurt you. I never wanted to betray your trust, and I can't express how sorry I am for what I did." I listened, my emotions a turbulent sea beneath the surface. "You say you're sorry, but it feels like those words come after the fact. You made choices that impacted our entire life together. It's hard to believe anything you say now. I understand why you feel that way," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "But I want to earn your trust back. I know it won't happen overnight, but I am committed to working through this if you'll allow me to." I took a moment to gather my thoughts, weighing her words. What does that even look like? Trust is not something that can just be handed back. It's earned, and right now you have a long way to go. "I know," she said softly, "and I'm willing to put in the effort. I want to go to counseling, together or separately, and I'm open to whatever it takes to rebuild what we had. I want a chance to prove to you that I can be better." Her sincerity was clear, and it tugged at my heart. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to give her that chance. But another part of me echoed the pain of betrayal, reminding me that trust was a fragile thing, easily broken and difficult to restore. "I need some time," I finally said, my voice steady. "I don't know what I want right now, and I need to process everything before making any decisions about us. It's going to be a long road." She nodded, her expression somber. "I understand. I'll give you space. Just know that I'm here when you're ready." As she left the room, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was beginning to realize that maybe there was a glimmer of hope. It would take time and it wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way forward. In the weeks that followed, we began to navigate this new, unfamiliar landscape of our relationship. Lisa attended counseling, and I decided to join her for a few sessions. We started to communicate more openly, sharing our feelings and fears, and although the weight of her betrayal still hung over us, there were moments of connection that began to emerge. We talked about our past, the reasons we had fallen into a routine, and the moments that had led to her infidelity. It was painful to revisit those memories, but it also allowed us to understand each other on a deeper level. We began to explore ways to reconnect, to reignite the spark that had dimmed over the years. I won't pretend that it was easy. There were days when the anger and resentment bubbled to the surface, and moments when I questioned whether I could ever truly trust her again. But alongside the pain, there were also flashes of joy, laughing together, reminiscing about happier times, and sharing dreams for the future. Gradually, I started to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. It wasn't the same as before. The reality of her betrayal would always be part of our story. But as we worked through our challenges, I began to understand the complexities of love and forgiveness. I realized that healing was not about forgetting the past but learning to navigate it together. Months passed, and while the road to recovery was still strewn with obstacles, Lisa and I rebuilt our relationship on a new foundation, one marked by honesty, vulnerability, and a commitment to never take each other for granted again. The path was uncertain, but I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. In the end, revenge had given way to reflection. My initial desire to hurt Lisa faded as I recognized that true strength lay not in revenge but in the courage to face our struggles together. Love is messy, complicated, and often painful, but it is also resilient. As I looked around our home, now filled with memories both good and bad, I saw our journey etched in the walls. We weren't perfect, and we still had a long way to go, but we were willing to fight for each other, something I thought had been lost forever. And as I sat down with Lisa one evening, our hands intertwined, I realized that sometimes the path to healing means choosing to walk together through the fire, rather than letting it consume you. We may never forget what had happened, but perhaps we could transform it into something powerful, a testament to love, forgiveness, and the strength of the human spirit. With that, our story continued, not as a tale of betrayal and revenge, but as a journey of resilience and rebuilding, a new chapter waiting to be written together.